speak to snakes too. They find me. Whisper things. Is that normal for someone like me?
We see that
Queen bee, want no smoke with me. Okay. Been turn this motherfucker up 800 degree. Whole team eat chefs cause she's a treat.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Kandace Reacts channel. Happy Thursday, everybody. Now, today's second video will be the story of Lord Voldemort. How he came from this, how he came from this to this. Alright? Tom Riddle Origins Explained. This is a re-upload. This video is a little bit long, so we're going to make this two parts. We're going to get into this video.
let's start with it. He comes from the Gauntlet, who were the last living relatives of Salazar Slytherin himself, one of the founders of Hogwarts, who famously had the rare ability to speak to snakes. The family was 100% pure blood over the course of their entire history. Merope Gaunt, Voldemort's mother, was physically and mentally abused on a regular basis by her father, Marvolo Gaunt, and her brother, Morphin Gaunt.
Both y'all,
and
too
she was
dang
thought to
ugly
be a
to be doing
squib
it.
because her magical abilities had not revealed themselves yet. The family had a lot of gold, but it was squandered several generations before Marvolo was born. All they owned was Salazar Slytherin's locket, and a ring that was a Gaunt family heirloom, which was actually the Resurrection Stone, one of the Deathly Hallows. Merope was taken by a rich and handsome muggle boy named Tom Riddle, who lived in the mansion up the way from their disgusting small house. Morphin shot a spell at him one day when she was admiring him while gardening. This of course broke the law of wizards not being allowed to use magic in front of muggles. A ministry agent came to see Morphin to give him information on his hearing because he had broken that law. Everything went south, and it turned out that the ministry agent had to call for backup, and there was a duel between Morphin and his father Marvolo and the ministry officials. Marvolo and Morphin of course lost, and Morphin was sentenced to 3 years in Azkaban, and Marvolo was sentenced to 6 months, finally freeing Merope from her awful family. Without the constant abuse from her father and brother, her magical abilities finally manifested, and Merope fled the house, taking nothing but Slytherin's locket. She started giving Tom Riddle, the boy she was taken by, a love potion, and eventually they got married, and Merope became pregnant with the person we would later know to be Lord Voldemort. Because he was conceived under a love potion, he's never able to feel or express love in his life. Merope thought that since she and Tom had spent so much time together, that he might actually love her, and if not that, he would at least stay for the baby. So she stopped giving him the love potion, the reason being that she didn't want to enslave the love of her life anymore. Unfortunately, she was wrong, and Tom left her, alone, pregnant with the baby. Her heartbreak made her never use magic again. Merope sold Slytherin's locket to Borgin, the owner of Borgin and Burke's, which will be important later on. Merope becomes ill, and she goes to an orphanage, where she gave birth to Tom, and died 1 hour later. Her last request being that the baby was named Tom for his father, Marvolo for her father, and with the surname of Riddle. Tom Marvolo Riddle was born on December 31st, 1926. As a baby, he hardly cried, according to the matron of the orphanage. As he got older, it was clear that he was the spitting image of his handsome muggle father, whom he was named after. He never had any family visitors, and he scared the other children at the orphanage. Although there was never any proof that he did so, he hung a kid named Billy's bunny by the rafters, after he had an argument with Billy the day before. When the kids from the orphanage were taken on a trip to the countryside, Tom and 2 other kids named Amy and Dennis went into a cave that they found. Amy and Dennis were never quite right afterwards. The only information they ever got out of them was that they went into a cave with Tom, and Tom swore that they just went exploring. Although Tom did not know he possessed magical powers, his abilities with them were very developed for his age, and he used them for his own gain and to bully other people.
I can make things move without touching them. I can make animals do what I want without training them. I can make bad things happen to people who are mean to me. I can make them hurt.
Tom collected trophies by stealing things from the kids that he bullied, as sort of a reward for his acts of unkindness. When Tom was 11, he got a visit from Albus Dumbledore at the orphanage, his first ever visit.
That Dumbledore?
Dumbledore explains to him what he is and what Hogwarts is. Tom's immediate reaction is, and I quote, "It's magic what I can do? I knew I was different." I knew I was
You
special.
most definitely special, alright.
During this visit, we see for the first time the way he uses his charm to get what he wants. He demands to know where he can get a wand like Dumbledore's. He goes from demanding to putting on his charm and changing his face in an instant to look sincere and says, "I'm sorry, sir. I meant, please, Professor. Could you show me?" Now, some important qualities of Tom that are revealed here include the fact that he can speak Parseltongue, meaning he can talk to snakes, just like everyone on his mother's side of the family.
I can speak to snakes too. They find me. Whisper things. Is that normal for someone like me?
We see that as a kid, he is highly sufficient, secretive, and friendless. He preferred to operate on his own, traits we will of course see later on when he gets older. We also see that he showed contempt for anything that tied him to other people, or anything that made him ordinary. He wished to be different, separate, and notorious. An example of this is how he felt about his name. You dislike the name Tom? There are a lot of Toms. Later on, of course, we know he would drop his name and give himself a new one. After Dumbledore met Tom, his initial thoughts on the boy were this: his ability to speak to serpents did not make me nearly as uneasy as his obvious instinct for cruelty, secrecy, and domination. Tom came to Hogwarts and was placed in Slytherin almost the second the Sorting Hat hit his head.
Slytherin!
While at school, Tom used his charm and never showed signs of outward arrogance or aggression that he had shown Dumbledore that day in the orphanage. According to Dumbledore, he drew the attention and sympathy of almost all the staff as soon as he arrived, because he was an unusually talented and very good-looking orphan. He seemed polite, quiet, and thirsty for knowledge.
When I first met young Mr. Riddle, he was a quiet, albeit brilliant boy committed to becoming a first-rate wizard. If the monster existed, it was buried deep within.
Tom was one of the top
He was
students
so
of the school
handsome,
and
man.
became a prefect in his 5th year. While at school, Tom was obsessed with his parentage, and he searched for evidence that his father went to Hogwarts in every way he could think of, but didn't find anything. He of course thought it was his father that was the wizard, because his mother, and I quote, had succumbed to the shameful human weakness of death. This is showing the first signs that he despised death. When he couldn't find anything on his father, Tom Riddle, he assumed that his father wasn't a wizard. So that's when he dropped his name, Tom Riddle, and took on the name Lord Voldemort.
Surely you didn't think I was going to keep my filthy muggle father's name? No. I fashioned myself a new name. A name I knew wizards everywhere would one day fear to speak.
Voldemort is loosely translated to flight from death, which of course is his biggest fear in life. Just another brilliant idea from author J.K. Rowling. After he found no trace of his father in the magical world, he started to search for evidence of his mother's side of the family, and found Marvolo Gaunt, his grandfather, whom he was named after. While at school, he got a group of dedicated friends, and I say friends for want of a better word, because as Dumbledore stated, Lord Voldemort has never had a friend, nor do I believe that he ever wanted one. These friends would eventually become the first generation of Death Eaters, Lord Voldemort's followers. These friends were rigidly controlled by Tom, and they were never detected in open wrongdoing, although in their 7 years of Hogwarts marked a number of nasty incidents that they were never satisfactorily linked to. After Tom finished his 5th year at Hogwarts, he went on summer holiday and took a visit to the old family Gaunt house where Merope grew up. He found his uncle Morphin there. Morphin was wearing the Gaunt family ring, and he tried to attack Voldemort, thinking he was Tom Riddle Sr., the man his sister had run off with, until Voldemort spoke in Parseltongue to him, and Morphin realized he wasn't Tom Riddle Sr. Voldemort asked Morphin who he was referring to, and Morphin told him about the Muggle family that lived in the mansion up the way, and how Tom Riddle Sr. had abandoned his mother while pregnant with him. Voldemort stupefied Morphin, took his wand, and went up to the Riddle mansion. He found his father and his Muggle grandparents at the dinner table, and killed them all with Morphin's wand. He then returned to the Gaunt house, used extremely advanced magic, especially for his 16-year-old self, to modify Morphin's memory, and make him think that he was the one who killed the Riddles, and was proud of it. Then he stole the ring from his uncle, placed Morphin's wand back, and unstupefied him, and left. When the Ministry came to the Gaunt house, Morphin bragged that he had killed the Riddles, which was exactly Lord Voldemort's plan. and the ministry saw that Morphin's wand was the one that killed the family. They never did any more digging into it, because it looked like a closed case. Morphin spent the rest of his life in Azkaban. The only words he ever spoke for the rest of his life were, "He'll kill me for losing the ring." During his 6th year, Voldemort starts to research Horcruxes, a way to make himself immortal. He goes to his favorite professor, Professor Slughorn, and asks him how it works.
A Horcrux is an object which a person has concealed part of their soul. One splits one's soul and hides part of it in an object. By doing so, you are protected should you be attacked and your body destroyed.
Protected.
Oh,
Part of your soul that
his
is
body
hidden
was
lives
most
on.
definitely destroyed.
In other words, you cannot die.
He loved that.
How does one split his soul, sir?
I think you already know the answer to that, Tom.
Murder.
Yes. Killing rips the soul apart. It's a violation against nature.
Voldemort then asks him whether it would be possible to split the soul into 7 pieces, the most powerfully magic number. During his 6th year, he, the heir to Slytherin, opened the Chamber of Secrets that led to the death of a Muggle-born girl named Myrtle.
Myrtle!
This is when he made his first Horcrux. He used Myrtle's death to split his soul for the first time and placed that part of the soul in his diary. Later, when he finds out that the school might close because of this, he gets scared and reacts by framing Hagrid, a half-giant, for opening the chamber, and becomes a hero, getting a special award for services to the school. During his remaining years at Hogwarts, it's unknown exactly when, but Voldemort used the death of his father, Tom Riddle Sr., to make the second Horcrux in the Gaunt Ring he stole from Morphin. During his remaining years, he also talked to the Grey Lady, the ghost of Ravenclaw, who also happened to be Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter, and uses his charm to get the information he wants out of her. I had no idea. He was flattering. He seemed to understand, to sympathize. The Grey Lady tells him about how she stole a diadem from her mother and hid it in a hollow tree in a forest in Albania. Voldemort finished at Hogwarts with top grades in every exam he took, and got many offers from professors to set up job interviews to work in the Ministry of Magic, but he refused them all. He instead approached the then headmaster, Professor Dippet, if he could remain at Hogwarts as a teacher to teach defense against the dark arts. Hogwarts was the first and only place that he felt at home, and he wanted to stay because he had unlocked so many secrets, more than anybody had before him. He also thought it would be a useful recruiting ground to build himself an army. Dippet says that he's too young, but he should come back in a few years, and then he can teach. Voldemort then gets a job at a shop called Borgin & Burke's in Knockturn Alley, which I mentioned earlier. This is a decision that many people thought was a waste of his many talents. While there, his job was to use his charm to make people part with their treasures for sale, and he was very gifted at it. One lady he visited very often was named Hepzibah Smith. He uses his charm to get on her good side, by bringing her flowers, kissing her hand, and just being overall handsome and mannerly, making this hideous woman feel beautiful. She shows him 2 artifacts that she's most proud of, which are 2 of the 4 heirlooms of the 4 founders of Hogwarts. The Hufflepuff Cup, which she inherited because she was a descendant of Hufflepuff, and the Locket of Salazar Slytherin, which she bought from Borgin. Borgin had of course acquired this from Voldemort's own mother when she sold it to him while she was pregnant with Voldemort, which I mentioned earlier. Voldemort leaves and returns 2 days later. He takes the cup and the locket, kills Hepzibah Smith, and makes his 3rd Horcrux in Hufflepuff's cup. Once again, we see how he takes trophies for his wrongdoings, just as he did when he was at the orphanage. He then modifies the memory of Hepzibah's house elf to make her think that she accidentally poisoned her master. And again, it looked like a closed case.
Alright, y'all, so that's part 1. This is going to be part 1 of the story of Lord Voldemort, Tom Riddle Origins Explained. So far, it's terrible. It's terrible. He grew up an orphan. How he was even conceived was terrible. Like, he wasn't even like truly conceived. He was conceived under a love potion. Then he just flat out killed his dad. I mean, it really wasn't his dad's fault. Like, he was under a love potion. I'm ready for them to get to the part where he changes. Well, it's gonna have to be in part 2. Give it a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe. Push that bell to be notified when next video drops. Part 2 will be coming tomorrow. This has been another mission completion. And we out of here.
Queen bee, want no smoke with me. Been turn this motherfucker up 800 degrees.